This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. An elderly woman is lucky to be alive after getting hit by an SUV while crossing a busy street in northwest Winnipeg. The incident happened Monday night outside a Sikh temple. It's led to calls for improved safety in the area, whereas CBC's Josh Crabb reports the temple is serving a growing population.
This woman was trying to cross King Edward Street before she was hit by the driver of a vehicle. It happened Monday night around 8:30 while she was leaving a Sikh temple in northwest Winnipeg.
So it's dangerous to walk along the road.
This Gurdwara serves a growing community. Nearby resident Harpal Kaur Sidhu worries because many worshippers walk or bike along and across the road. The speed limit is 60 kilometers per hour.
She was hit hard and she rolled over the road, and she was still, and I was scared that maybe she's okay or not, but it was a terrible accident.
A family member told CBC the woman is in hospital with serious injuries. Prabjot Singh's grandma isn't going to the Gurdwara because of what happened.
Because of that video, we just stopped her, so she doesn't come anymore. So yeah, government should make lights here so it will be easy for the people to come into the Gurdwara.
There is a pedestrian corridor about 300 meters from here near Waterford Springs School, but given how often people cross King Edward Street to get to the Gurdwara, some area residents think there should be one here too.
I try to keep safety by looking both sides, and then I am sure that I can cross the road, then I do it.
The City of Winnipeg says it's identified the need to upgrade the road and add sidewalks, walk and bike paths, and pedestrian crossings. But there's no money set aside for the project, and it isn't slated to happen until at least 2030.
It should be done on the priority basis.
The temple is being expanded on the same site. Area City Councillor Devi Sharma tells CBC she agrees changes are needed, but the work may have to wait until the new building goes up. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitobans gathered outside the legislature last night to remember American conservative activist Charlie Kirk. The controversial podcaster was killed last week in Utah. Security at the Vigil estimated about 1,500 in attendance, where people praised his faith and values. The CBC's Rosanna Hempel was there.
They lit candles and prayed. Some wrapped themselves in American and Canadian flags. This crowd gathered at the Manitoba legislature Tuesday night to honor the life of American conservative activist Charlie Kirk.
This past week, I have never wept so much for a man I didn't know.
Pastors and speakers praised Kirk for his grassroots advocacy of Christian values and free speech.
He left a legacy behind, and that legacy will never be forgotten.
Kirk was assassinated last Wednesday during an appearance at a university in Utah. Lisa Chenier of Winnipeg says it was emotional and shocking to see. She came to the vigil to show her kids they shouldn't be afraid to speak openly.
Charlie was one of those guys, whether you agreed with him or not, that just impacted youth across the world. My daughter's youth, my son's a young man, and it was important to come out today to say, you know what, conversation can happen peacefully. It didn't happen peacefully last week.
Others came to find community and voice frustration at how some have portrayed Kirk since the shooting. The prominent podcaster frequently used his platforms to rail against liberal viewpoints, including the civil rights movement and 2S LGBTQ+ issues. Families Minister Nahani Fontaine apologized for reposting comments to social media that in part called the 31-year-old a racist and transphobic person who stood for nothing but hate.
He was a strong family person. He demonstrated that in his life, and he was about the message of God.
Mourners chanted, then held a moment of silence before closing in prayer and song. The 22-year-old Utah man faces multiple charges, including aggravated murder in connection to Kirk's murder. Prosecutors say they'll seek the death penalty against Tyler Robinson. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Things are back to normal in Victoria Beach today after a bomb scare at a ballpark late yesterday. People were warned to stay away from the beach's community center baseball diamond after police said something resembling a Second World War era bomb was found. Police say the item may have been part of a package dropped off for a rummage sale. A bomb disposal unit from the Canadian Armed Forces was called in, and it was determined to be a roughly 50-year-old practice bomb designed for training that releases smoke upon impact. Well, if you ride the bus, get ready to see more police officers along your route. The city says both uniformed and undercover officers will have an increased presence starting this week. It comes after transit says it's seen a tripling of violent crimes in recent years. CBC's Mike Arsenault reports.
Cole Cornies uses Winnipeg Transit every day to get to the University of Manitoba. He says since moving here for school last year, he's had a few negative encounters, like people yelling at him while he's waiting at his stop.
Stuff that's definitely put me on edge, made me uncomfortable, so nice to know that there might be someone who can help, especially if someone's getting violent.
The help coming to transit buses is the Winnipeg Police Service. Wednesday, Mayor Scott Gillingham announced WPS would be increasing their police presence on buses and in areas around bus shelters.
Will improve the confidence that riders have, that families have whose loved ones take the bus, and that our operators have, that with this approach, a layered approach, we're improving safety on our transit system.
WPS say there were 325 violent crimes reported on buses and areas around bus shelters in 2024, triple the number from 2019. Superintendent Brian Milne says data will inform where they put the officers.
It's not going to be random in the sense that we're just going to pop up anywhere without purpose. It's going to be very purpose-driven in the sense that we're going to be going to the area of need.
Milne says WPS is using existing resources to staff the buses, and there's no added cost for the initiative. Amalgamated Transit Union Local 1505 President Chris Scott says transit drivers deal with violence and threats on a daily basis, and the addition of police officers on buses is a welcome sight for operators.
I've already received a call today on the way to this media event that an operator said, I had 2 cops board my bus and they were riding around and it felt great.
Cornies thinks the initiative will give riders an increased sense of safety.
I'm just glad that people somewhere are thinking on how to fix the kind of issues, because it's a prickly problem.
Uniformed and plainclothes officers will be riding on the bus as part of the initiative. Police say the additional officers aren't permanent. It'll run for the next 3.5 months till the end of the year. Then they'll reassess the need based on the outcome. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, Winnipeg.
3 former high school students are suing the Pembina Trails School Division, alleging it failed to keep them safe from a former football coach. They all went to Vincent Massey Collegiate, where Kelsey McKay was a teacher and coach. In a statement of claim, they say the division failed to provide a safe environment when they were groomed, harassed, and exploited by the now convicted sex offender. They say he was put in a position of power, allowing him to abuse them. They also allege it could have been prevented had concerns raised by parents and players in 2016 been addressed. McKay himself is not named in the lawsuit. The 3 plaintiffs were students and football players at Vincent Massey from 2013 to 2017. Pembina Trails has declined to comment. Let's bring in weather specialist Riley Lachuk. And Riley, it was another one of those weird days when trying to figure out what to wear.
Yeah.
Hot for my walk this morning, then a little chillier this afternoon.
Yeah, a little bit of wind into the mix through the afternoon hours, Brittany. And temperatures, a bit closer to seasonal as well through the afternoon. 19 in Winnipeg at the airport. Downtown, as forecast, getting to 20 degrees this afternoon. 17s in Dauphin and Swan River, 13 in Thompson. You can see where we have a bit of a trough soften the jet stream here, allowing some cooler air in, more of a northerly flow as we get through the night tonight. We are looking at mostly cloudy sky. There's been some breaks in this cloud cover throughout the day across southern Manitoba, northeastern Manitoba now into more of a sunnier sky as well. But it's what's happening south of the border that I'm watching here down into the Dakotas. This area of low pressure pushing a little bit further north. Some of this cloud cover starts to push into Manitoba tonight. We get sort of the outer edges of the system as it brushes across into northwestern Ontario. So overnight temperatures 12 degrees in the city tonight, a northeasterly wind, maybe a few peaks of sunshine first thing in the morning at 13. And then we get into a chance of showers in the afternoon. Brittany, a better chance the further south you are toward the international border. We'll talk about that and when we get into a bit more of a drier pattern when I come back in just a bit.
All right. Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
Still ahead, a new national report acknowledges the prevalence of anti-Indigenous racism in sport in our country. More on that when we return. A First Nations chief is glad a new national report is acknowledging the prevalence of racism in sport. Many young athletes, parents and coaches shared their experiences in a national review of Canada's sports system. The findings speak to a grim reality that's faced Indigenous youth for decades. CBC's Justin Fiacconi has more.
Every year, the best young Indigenous hockey players face off in a national championship. A tournament Winnipeg has hosted twice. Competitions like this not only showcase Indigenous athletes, but also provide an inclusive environment for play. A new national report suggests anti-Indigenous racism is prevalent in the mainstream sports system.
It's a lot of truth in what's documented in that report.
Late last month, the Future of Sport in Canada Commission released its preliminary report on the Canadian sports system it's acknowledged as broken. All Indigenous organizations and communities that engaged with the Commission shared experiences of anti-Indigenous racism and taunting in mainstream sports settings. Alyssa McIver's son played for the Norquay Knights, a predominantly Indigenous team. She experienced this firsthand at her son's hockey game in Winnipeg after a scrum broke out on the ice.
One of the mothers was yelling to the referees to get in there and stop the fight, and she said, those little Indians are going to kill my son.
Chief E.J. Fontaine says racial slurs were directed towards members of Sagin at a youth hockey game last year in his First Nation. It reminded him of feelings he had decades ago when he played hockey.
And the sport's supposed to be fun for kids. It's supposed to be a good time for making friends, for creating good memories. And for us, it certainly didn't do that.
Jamie Menzies is the founder of Agujin Volleyball. It's an Indigenous-led program offering Indigenous and Two-Spirit youth safe access to sport and mentorship opportunities.
On the surface, mainstream sport would not appear to be exclusionary to Indigenous people, but it's more about acceptance and safety and feeling welcome in spaces.
The Commission's report is not the first to acknowledge the prevalence of racism in Canadian sport. Participants in a 2021 study spoke of a culture of exclusion and racism, making these spaces unsafe for many children, youth, and adults in Winnipeg.
Fontaine says racism in sport is a deep and pervasive issue, one he says needs to be discussed beyond merely pointing towards existing policies. Ultimately, he and others hope this report can spark meaningful action on racism in sports. Justin Fiacconi, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Most of us across the country were really feeling the heat this summer. But while super hot days are relaxing for some, they can be risky for others. And now a new report suggests almost everyone on the planet was feeling the effects of climate change. CBC's science and climate reporter Anand Ram has more.
The U.S.-based nonprofit Climate Central crunched data for almost 1,000 cities around the world and found that nearly 1 billion people, mostly in Asia, experienced 30 or more risky heat days this summer.
We defined risky heat as being heat that is hotter than 90% of the temperatures you typically experience in your local area. So that looks different if you're sitting in Toronto than it does if you're sitting in San Diego or Los Angeles.
And that's important because the risks of health issues, even death, are different depending on the environment that you're used to. And so when it's hotter than it typically is 90% of the time, that's a better indicator of risk. According to the analysis, Canada, from June through August of this year, on average saw 39 risky heat days. 2 of those weeks, Climate Central says, is directly attributable to human-caused climate change.
We expect June, July, August to be the times of year when people experience these risky heat days. Some of that is natural, but climate change is loading the dice.
The big message here is clear. Climate change is reshaping the odds of daily weather in Canada, and people feel it most directly through extreme heat.
And some feel it more than others. People who are older, people who have underlying health issues like cardiovascular issues or diabetes, or children, the heat can be far more intense, even kill. We saw that in 2021, where more than 600 people died in British Columbia when a heat dome parked over the region. but risk, experts say, goes beyond people's health.
What is their ability to adapt in this situation? And that includes having air conditioning, having a job where even if they're in the heat, are able to get out of the heat through policies that protect outdoor workers. Thinking about your social capital. So what's your community that you can rely on when it is hot, if you do get into a dangerous situation?
And experts say this is part of a feedback loop. Hotter days means more drought conditions. More drought conditions leads to drier fuel that make wildfires spread. And spreading wildfires increases emissions that adds to global warming, which raises the chances of hotter days. So the heat that Canadians and the world felt this summer could have effects for years to come. Anand Ram, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, we definitely had a number of those hot days this summer, and for late September, late September, still feeling some effects of that heat right now as well, above normal season.
Yeah, and we are looking at above seasonal temperatures, Brittany, continuing for the foreseeable future for a good chunk of southern Manitoba as we get even toward the end of the month here. So I'm going to start with our 10-day temperature trend. So normal high for this time of the year for today is 17 degrees. It does start to drop as we get toward the end of the month, but looking at some of these temperatures, we're pushing well above seasonal for this time of the year. So the next couple of days, yes, maybe a couple of cooler days as we get through Thursday into Friday, 18s, 20s for the weekend, but I want you to see what happens here as we get toward the end of next week, pushing 23, 24 degrees once again before we start to slowly drop off toward the end of the month. So we are looking at this above seasonal trend of temperatures continuing, like I said, for the foreseeable future here before we get into maybe something a bit more fall-like, possibly by the time we get into early October. I know that seems like a while yet, but really it's only a couple of weeks away from us here. So looking at futurecast as we get into the evening tonight, partly cloudy skies. We will see that cloud starting to build in though as we get into the overnight hours tonight, for example. So by the time we get to the morning, do expect a bit more cloud cover, particularly back into the west, still into northwestern Ontario, parts of the southern interlake, likely seeing some sunshine first thing in the morning. And then we start to see the first fingers of that rainfall starting to push into the province as we get later into the afternoon. So a slight chance of showers for Winnipeg, that chance lessening the further north you go, still under the influence of high pressure through much of the northern interlake and much of northern Manitoba. So more of a sunny day into the north tomorrow, but in the south here, we're stuck under this cloud cover. A better chance of some showers as we get into the day on Friday. So we're starting with a cloudy sky once again into Friday. Then as we get into the afternoon, you start to see more of the shower activity pushing northward into the interlake as we get into Saturday morning before we start to see this tapering off Saturday into Sunday across southern and central parts of the province. What this translates into really is a pretty broad area where we are looking at the potential for 4 or 5 millimeters of rain. Again, it kind of depends on where you are in the province where we see some of that falling as we get into the weekend here. So cooler one tomorrow, below seasonal in fact into parts of Westman, 13s, 14s for Brandon, 16s to 18s into parts of southeastern Manitoba, northwestern Ontario. And then we start to get some sunshine back as we get toward the beginning of fall into next week. Speaking of, I'll leave you with some weather photos tonight. First off, one here from Gary in Petersfield with some of the fall colors. And then we've got a couple here, Brittany, from Tim, who took these near Gillam.
Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
And here are some more shots of Steinbach as we head to break. Stay with us, more to come. U.S. President Donald Trump is in Britain for a 2-day state visit, a historic event that began with a full schedule of royal splendor, pomp, pageantry, and gold in the company of King Charles and Queen Camilla, all behind the walls of one of their castles, far from the crowd of anti-Trump protesters. Briar Stewart has details.
It was billed as an unprecedented second state visit, and the royal welcome and ensuing pageantry played out largely away from the public, behind the fortress-like walls of Windsor Castle. This was the first time that a world leader has been given a second state visit. Royal carriages were part of a clear charm offensive to try and appease the U.S. president, who seems bent on upending foreign policy. Trump and the First Lady were shown items from the royal collection that speak to the UK and US relationship. In the afternoon, they got a tour of St. George's Chapel before they laid a wreath at the tomb of Queen Elizabeth II. After a ceremony featuring military bands from both countries, there was a brief flypast by the British Red Arrows. Streams of red, white, and blue marked the sky. Then the group was treated to a lavish banquet.
The ocean may still divide us, but in so many other ways, we are now the closest of kin.
This is truly one of the highest honors of my life.
Some on the street turned up to support Trump.
He said he will make America great. In fact, he's doing it.
Others wanted the president to know he's not welcome in the UK. Tim Miles turned up with a handful of flags to make it clear that he doesn't like how Trump is treating countries that are supposed to be allies.
He can screw up his own country if he wants to, I suppose, but he shouldn't be interfering in anybody else's.
Donald Trump, you can't hide! In London, thousands marched this afternoon to deliver the same message, protesting Trump and the UK government's efforts to host him. While security was stepped up for the visit, a group managed to project images of Trump and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein on the walls of the castle just hours before the official welcome. On Thursday, Trump will meet the UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and among other things, they will talk about a deal which will see US tech companies invest tens of billions of dollars in Britain's artificial intelligence and computing industry. And then there'll be part of this visit which will be less choreographed. Both Trump and Starmer will take questions from the press. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Windsor, England.
FBI Director Kash Patel once again defended his handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. He faced a second day of grilling from U.S. lawmakers over promises about transparency surrounding the late sex offender's criminal case. Karina Roman has the latest from Washington.
FBI Director Kash Patel faced a second day of grilling on Capitol Hill, following his claims yesterday before a Senate committee that there was no credible information that convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein trafficked women and underage girls to others. Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee were having none of that. Patel was asked over and over, is he saying the victims, many of whom have given statements and names to the FBI, aren't credible?
These are women who came to the Hill and testified that they were groomed and raped at the age of 14 and 16 years old, and they called to meet with the president and to meet with the FBI and to have people investigate their claims. Some of them have never testified before. If you are so interested in getting the public to submit any information, why have you not met with them? You said you haven't met with them. Have you met with them? I'll give you one more chance.
My job as the FBI director is to invite all
investigative leads. Is the answer yes or no to whether or not you met with these women who were sexually abused and raped?
Patel was also pushed on avenues of investigation critics argue the FBI has not pursued and should. For example, following the money. There are reports of millions of dollars in money transfers to finance Epstein's trafficking. Who is behind those? And in addition to urging the FBI to interview the victims, another Democratic congressman made this suggestion.
Are there any photos showing Donald Trump with girls of an uncertain age?
No.
How do you know that?
because that information would have been brought to light by multiple administrations and FBI investigators over the course of the last 20 years.
The fact that the Epstein story won't go away here in Washington is significant. Patel is one of many from Trump's circle who were very vocal in the past couple of years that there was a cover-up of the Epstein files by the Democrats. Now the shoe is on the other foot, and Democrats are happy to point out the change coincides with the revelation that Trump's name is in the files. And for conservatives and MAGA supporters who have long called for more transparency on this, this is the one story that is not sitting well with them. Karina Roman, CBC News, Washington.
Ottawa is joining a chorus of condemnation of Israel, calling its ground offensive in Gaza City horrific and suggesting it violates international law. Israel launched the new military action against Hamas on Tuesday. Local health officials say at least 50 people were killed Wednesday across the Gaza Strip, bringing the number of Palestinians killed since the war began 2 years ago above 65,000. Sasha Petrusik is in the region with more.
We're standing on the border with Gaza, and as this ground offensive gathers steam, we are seeing smoke rising. We're hearing artillery here, and of course there have been many airstrikes over the past several days, increasing all the time. We're also hearing that in Gaza City itself, internet and phone service has been cut off. The military has been moving closer and closer into the center of Gaza City, the most populous part of the Strip, with some 600,000 people believed to be still there, most of those civilians, although Israel says there are also Hamas fighters among them. Israel has opened a second route, a temporary one, for people trying to flee, but it is only going to be open for 2 days, and all of these routes are absolutely jammed. Now, all of this has been denounced internationally. The EU is on the verge of imposing new sanctions. These are expected to be trade sanctions primarily, although they have also said that they are going to sanction a number of the extremist members of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet, as well as violent settlers. A number of countries, such as Germany and Spain, have already introduced their own sanctions on Israel. As a result of all of this, Netanyahu has said that he sees an Israel in the future that is going to be more and more isolated and has to act on its own.
So we are going to produce an independent arms industry, very powerful, very strong, that can withstand any kind of international political constraints and will provide security for the state of Israel.
He has pulled back some of those comments in the past 24 hours because of reaction from the business community. They see Israel suffering. The stock market reacted badly to his comments. The business community saying that Netanyahu's policies are marching Israel toward an economic abyss. Still, those are continuing. The military operations behind me are also continuing. In fact, if anything, they're intensifying. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, on the border with Gaza.
The Bank of Canada has lowered its key interest rate by a quarter point to 2.5%. Governor Tiff Macklem says that while the threat of inflation has eased, the U.S. trade uncertainty and tariffs are affecting the Canadian economic outlook. Niña Patel reports.
The Bank of Canada is cutting its key interest rate for the first time in 6 months.
There was a clear sense that the balance of risk has shifted.
The benchmark rate is now 25 basis points lower, sitting at 2.5%. The central bank says the threat of inflation has eased, with the overall rate hitting 1.9% last month. But the trade war with the U.S. is weighing on the economy.
Certainly when you talk to businesses, they're telling us they're facing a host of new costs related to trade disruption. They're trying to change their supply chains, they're finding new suppliers, they're trying to develop new markets.
With steep tariffs on autos, steel, and aluminum, exports and business investment have fallen. Since the trade war started, this Ontario manufacturing company says sales are down 25%.
I think the industry in general is hurting pretty bad. The manufacturing in Canada has really no good stories to tell at this point.
Those sectors most exposed to trade are shedding jobs, helping drive Canada's unemployment rate up to 7.1%. A resolution to the uncertainty could be a long way off.
The bottom line is we should still expect some economic weakness in the quarters ahead, but it might be coming from different sources. And the Bank of Canada's view is it probably isn't a recession and it's probably just sluggish growth.
So lower interest rates will make it cheaper for businesses and consumers to borrow money and perhaps give the economy a bit of a boost. The central bank says there are still considerable risks to the economy and it plans to proceed carefully for any future interest rate decisions. Many economists expect at least one interest rate cut by the end of the year. Niña Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Ontario Provincial Police are sharing what they call shocking video and details of an incident that could have caused a fatal collision on Canada's busiest highway.
The driver is now facing criminal charges of dangerous driving, failing to remain at the scene of a collision, and driving the wrong way on a divided highway.
This is the dash cam footage. Now keep your eyes on the center lane. Police say a 21-year-old man was driving eastbound in the westbound lanes of Highway 401 in Milton, Ontario. That's northwest of Toronto. He sideswipes several vehicles and narrowly misses hitting another. He later crashed into a light pole. Amazingly, no one was hurt. Police say they're still investigating whether the driver was sober at the time. A love of Lord of the Rings and long motorcycle rides helped two Winnipeg friends complete a record-setting motorcycle trip. We'll have that story coming up. Stay with us. Authorities say they feared a man accused of helping smuggle a family of 4 through Canada before they froze to death would flee if they didn't arrest him. Sunil Patel was taken into custody earlier this month following an extradition request from the U.S. One expert says how long that process will take is anyone's guess.
Will the person sought decide to waive extradition and spend his time and his energy defending himself in the U.S.? Will he decide to make a plea deal in the U.S. and waive extradition for that purpose? If any of those happen, it'll be fast. If he decides to contest extradition, it will take longer. How much longer is hard to tell.
Patel is accused of dropping a group of migrants from India near the Manitoba-U.S. border as part of a human smuggling operation in January 2022. The bodies of Jagdish and Vaishali Patel and their 2 young kids, who were not related to Sunil Patel, were later found nearby. Scientists have been keeping a close eye on the Pacific Ocean right now, where conditions are pointing toward a La Niña event in the next few months. As Johanna Wagstaff explains, it could have a big impact on fall and winter weather in parts of Canada.
This just in, a La Niña watch issued for the Pacific Ocean. This is one of our best clues about what kind of fall and winter we might see in Canada, especially Western Canada. So in a typical La Niña, BC tends to get cooler than usual with more snow in the mountains. Meanwhile, the prairies might see wetter conditions, and the Great Lakes and Eastern Canada can get stormier. Curious about how it works? It's all about the Pacific Ocean temperatures, specifically the equatorial Pacific. Both El Niño, you know, her popular sibling, and La Niña are climate patterns. Meteorologists are always keeping an eye on this. El Niño is the warm phase with above average sea surface temperatures and weakened trade winds. Those are those steady east to west winds near the equator, driven partly by the Earth's rotation. And yes, sailors used to use them to hightail it to the Americas back in the day. La Niña is the cold phase with below average sea surface temperatures due to stronger trade winds. Basically, the stronger the winds, the more shoving of that warm surface water out of the way happens, and the upwelling of colder water to the surface can happen. So NOAA monitors these temperatures because they can have ripple effects all over the world and can tip the odds for droughts, storms, or heat waves. Not a guarantee, but a good clue. And these swings, by the way, happen on top of climate change. So La Niña doesn't cancel out global warming. It just means our whole baseline is shifting warmer. So right now, NOAA says we are likely to move from neutral conditions, that's where we're at right now, to La Niña in the next couple of months. They're forecasting a 71% chance of a La Niña October through December 2025. The heads up is for ski resorts, farmers, energy planners, and public health agencies. La Niña is not just an ocean thing, it's a sneak peek into the season ahead. And now you've got your heads up.
The municipality of Ethelbert near Dauphin has declared a local state of emergency after flash flooding. People in the community of about 650 say a dozen basements were swamped this week. Up to 200 millimeters or 8 inches of rain came down in under 24 hours between Monday and Tuesday. Now, much of the water has since receded, but officials say several roads will need to be fixed. Riley, back in now, and really just an incredible amount of rain in a very short time. And as we were talking about just the other day, you could be not very far from there and have gotten nothing.
Yeah, some communities, as I showed you on the show last night, even just south of and just north of, barely getting any rain, and yet we get this deluge in one specific area. So just the power of Mother Nature and what some isolated thunderstorms can do in some parts of the province. We are looking at more of a steady rain in some parts, particularly along the international border as we get through Thursday into Friday. But if you're heading out for a dog walk tomorrow morning, well, you're in for a pretty dry one, at least here in the city. And I think that's something that Bear is really going to be excited about. Lindsay, thank you for sending this picture, and I know you're really excited to see this one tonight, so I hope you enjoy, and I hope you have a great walk tomorrow, because we are looking at a cloudy start, 13 degrees in Winnipeg, northeast winds, 15 gusting to 30 by the afternoon. We have that chance of showers into the afternoon, into the evening. Not a steady rain per se in Winnipeg, but we are looking at the potential for some some showers as we get into the afternoon tomorrow. All right, looking outside at the moment, I did want to show you this because last time we looked at this, these leaves on the lawn at the U of W were not that yellow. They are certainly changing quick out there. 17 degrees in the city right now. Pressure is falling with a light northeasterly wind across the rest of the province. 16s and 17s across much of the south. 20 degrees still in Melita this hour, 9 in Churchill, 14 in Gillam, with some cloud cover still hanging around a good chunk of the province as we get through the night tonight. So your overnight temperatures look like this, 10 to 12 degrees for most of us, really for all of us as we get through the night. Mostly cloudy sky in Dauphin through Roblin into Swan River tonight. Some clear breaks as we get through the night, and then we'll get some of that cloud cover starting to build back in as we get into the day for your Thursday tomorrow. Into northern Manitoba, we do get some clearing, but still mostly cloudy throughout the night tonight, looking at 7 degrees in Norway House, 11s for Flin Flon, the Pas, and OCN, getting up to 17 tomorrow afternoon. Mostly sunny skies. We'll see the rest of that cloud cover departing as we get through the day, so maybe not as much cloud cover as this icon is showing per se by the time we get to the afternoon, looking at more of a sunny sky really across much of northern Manitoba, 18 in Norway House, 17s and 18s through Thompson and Gillam tomorrow afternoon. We get that cloud, the reverse, building back in as we get through the day tomorrow for southern Manitoba. So by the afternoon, looking at temperatures 14 to 18 degrees. More like 16 through the afternoon in Winnipeg, but I do think we can get up to that high of 18 through the afternoon hours for Thursday. And you can start to see some of that rain, some of those showers starting to push in to places like Emerson, Brunkled, into Morden-Winkler by the time we get to the late afternoon hours. And Brittany, looking at more of a steadier shower as we get into the day on Friday before we start to see that tapering off into Saturday.
All right. Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, 2 Winnipeg friends have been recognized internationally for an epic motorcycle ride. Earlier this summer, the pair rode from Winnipeg to Vancouver and back again in under 3 days. That's more than 4,800 kilometers. CBC's Jim Agapito caught up with them.
You were, I'm telling you. I'm Paul Bazilla.
And I'm Tiffany Taverner.
We have a motorcycle riding club called the Long Distance Riders of Manitoba, and we're also members of an organization called the Iron Butt Association, and we specialize in doing long distance rides in a really short amount of time.
What's the name of this, and tell me how you came up with the name for this challenge?
We're in the middle of Canada. It was just, we were playing this over the middle of Canada ride, and then the connection was obvious. It became
the Middle Earth Quest.
Here's a ride in the Iron Butt Association, a Canadian ride called the TC75. And it involves going to one coast or the other and riding across the country in less than 75 hours. I failed at this once because we live in Winnipeg and I was already exhausted by the time I got to the East Coast. And that was about 25 years ago. And since then, I've always wanted to find a way to do that. I think it only makes sense. We have a Middle Earth Quest that starts and finishes in the center of Canada.
Tell me about the bikes here.
Well, as you can see, long distance bikes aren't necessarily pretty, but they are functional. The modifications we do are, if they don't have them, we put a cruise control on. To get a bit more range, both bikes have an auxiliary fuel cell. We also put driving lights on them. Other things we like to do are heated grips.
How does he convince you to go and do this with him?
Well,
not as hard as you might think.
No, not as hard. Because I started long distance riding in 2021 because of him. So to do the Middle Earth Quest, for me, I say it now, was no big deal, but it was a big deal.
What time did you start off?
We left Winnipeg at 5 so that we would start at 6, went to center of Canada and took our picture.
And it has to be cataloged. You can't just say you did it, you have to have proof. We actually had to stop and take one of our first naps in Merritt because we were tired. And it was insane amount of time to get from Hope to the Tsawwassen ferry terminal, which is going to be our furthest point.
What did that do to your body?
For me as a woman, I'm correctly built for long distance riding. I'm sitting on it right now.
We're heavy on the top, small on the bottom, and you start getting sores. After about 24 hours for sure, you're going to know you're in trouble.
That's interesting because you were saying there was a point where you almost called it in.
I did. My body was great, just my brain wanted to cash out. We were almost near Swift Current, And I was really, really tired. And he's like, oh, let's hold out, let's hold out. And I was riding and there was a semi that was going to pass me. All of a sudden I saw him pull back and I realized I was way over on the left-hand side. And I said to Paul, we're stopping.
And then we had at least one more in...
was it Moosomin?
Moosomin, yeah.
Yeah.
We were both tired, and
Yeah.
so that was probably a 20, 30-minute nap.
And that was the last one, and then just beelined it home.
And you did it in 62 hours.
62 hours and 2 minutes, I think it was.
And you guys said that basically for the first time this has ever been done.
Yes.
This particular ride, yes.
What do you want to say for other, female riders that might want to do something like this,
I think that anybody can do it. It's just a matter of that you have to be prepared enough and also have the willingness just to try.
Still ahead, students at an Alberta post-secondary school have a new companion joining their classes this year. How Dr. Wolf is adjusting to campus life. More on that when we come back.
So a bit more of a dreary day as we head into the day on Thursday, perhaps playing a bit of peekaboo sunshine Through the day tomorrow, 18 degrees, the forecast high, chance of some showers as we get into the later afternoon hours for the Red River Valley, into Winnipeg in particular, but further south toward the international border, this is more like showers into the early afternoon for places like Emerson, for example. So those showers pushing northward through the day. 18 degrees for Friday. That's when I think Winnipeg has a better chance of showers. Maybe a few more yet to come into the day on Saturday, but more so into the Interlake as we get through Saturday. And then into Sunday, we are looking at a bit of a clearing sky, 21 degrees, and we're starting fall Brittany next Monday with a breezy 21. A new robot dog is turning heads at Red Deer Polytechnic in Alberta. And yes, it can dance, play games, and can even help ease social isolation.
But it could also help save lives. CBC's Nadir Hashmi has our daily lift.
Students at Red Deer Polytechnic have a new four-legged friend on campus, a robotic dog. Yak Sharma has been looking after Dr. Wolf for weeks.
Usually you see these things in TikToks and Reels and online, and when you see it in real life, you're just excited, like, oh my God, like I see it right now.
With cameras and sensors, the robot is integrated with artificial intelligence and can react to complex surroundings. Taking it across the campus, the robot has become a real crowd pleaser.
My favorite thing is that it can stand on its hind and front legs, and also it can, well, it shows a heart, and people get interested by that.
But for Tanya Wolf, the real excitement comes from the tougher jobs the robot can take on, like heading into mines to test for toxic air. Think the proverbial canary in the coal mine.
If the canary comes out, you know it's safe. But now we can have the Dr. Wolf go in, and it can scan that environment, it can come back out, let us know if it's safe for us to be in there.
The robot can be fitted with any type of sensor so that it can also inspect and detect gas leaks. Wolf adds this robot is giving students hands-on opportunities to apply their software knowledge. Next up, Dr. Wolf may also make an appearance at the Canadian Manufacturing Technology Show in Toronto later this month, as long as they can get the dog a plane ticket. Nadir Hashmi, CBC News, Red Deer.
Do you think he has to stay under the seat like an actual dog? He might be able to get his own seat.
Maybe. 100% would put that on the dog walking forecast if you sent me one of them.
There we go. Have a wonderful night. We'll see you tomorrow.